Hello and welcome to Matchbook Meets. It's my great pleasure to introduce you, Terry Dartnall, a man that probably needs no introduction to many of those involved in English greyhound racing for, well, quite some time. I'm not going to give away his age or anything like it, but Terry Dartnall, a pleasure to have you. You're involved in this sport a long, long time.
I have been involved in the sport a long time, yeah. Probably too long some days. I come up 72, so I got involved in dogs when I was 10 years of age, 8, 9, 10 years of age. My uncle was a trainer up at Monkham's Hall in the Crooked Mile in Essex. His place looked right out onto the Lee Valley. And he had a couple of stud dogs out there. Barrowside he had at stud, and I used to go out there weekends and just enjoy being with the dogs. And we used to go every week to Wembley, Mondays and Fridays with my dad. 8 races. Started about 7:30, finished about 9:30, 10 o'clock, and that was it. 2 meetings a week, and it sort of went on from there, really. I got involved with I watched a bitch run around Wembley once called Piper's Jenny, and not many dogs broke 29 seconds at Wembley. You could probably count them on one hand, but she broke 29 seconds at Wembley. And I happened to look through her Acne sales catalogue, and lo and behold, there was a bitch there called Dark Spider. That was her sister. So I thought, well, I'll go and try and buy this bitch. And I went to Acne sales, I had my case 200 quid, and she went for 220 guineas, and I bought the bitch. Anyway, I got her home, and I was well pleased I bought this bitch, and she became sick very quickly. And a couple of vets says, look, it seems as if she's got distemper. You have to put her down. And that was a fella called Turner, a vet called Turner. Then a fella called Gabriel, who was a renowned greyhound vet. He was in Ashford. He said, look, he was the second opinion. He said, look, she's got distemper. You won't get around this. You got to put her down. So it was my case 220 guineas. And in those days, they used to wrap up mincemeat in greaseproof paper. And this mincemeat, the blood had got on the greaseproof paper. And I put it in my pocket of like an old feeding coat I used to wear in the winter. And I went down to the yard and into the kennel with this bitch, and all of a sudden she started sniffing at my pocket. And it was the blood that she was trying to sniff, and I got a lick in the blood. The next thing, she started eating. And the rest is history, really. She broke the track record at Cambridge. So again?
Had she gone the other way, and let's say you had put her down, do you think your time in greyhound racing would have been shortened?
No, I don't think so. It's in your blood, isn't it? But you see, it's about patience. It's all about patience. And people go to the vet with dogs, but really you're your best own vet because you see that dog every day. And when you see that dog every day, you've got more of a chance of knowing what's going on with that dog and what's in his mind than the vet has at some stages. They can do blood tests and this and that. But if they got the art to come back, they come back. Some don't, and some do. I was lucky enough that she did because she won out for the races. This bitch never stopped winning, winning. And it's it's like playing the piano. I can't play the piano. I love the piano. I've got a baby grand here, and my dad used to play it when he was alive. But you're gifted, you don't know, but you are, and that was the start of it, really. And then I had plenty of flapping success, Then moved on from flapping to licence racing. We've had plenty of success in the licence racing. And that's where we went from there. But my Uncle Horry had all the Monkham's dogs, the Monkham's prefix. And he had a load of dogs for the Chandlers. He had a lot of resting dogs out of Walthamstow. So actually, Matthew is a third generation ground trainer, really. My son, I'm now just the assistant, but we round most days, but that's all right.
I'm never going to refer to you as assistant trainer, Terry. Obviously, with a long history in the sport, you've done it all. You've been there. You've done that. You mentioned patience. I looked back at a few bits and pieces when getting ready for this, and you did a piece with Racing Post Greyhound Television there a few years ago, and everything was to the nth degree. You make sure that they get the right feed, the right timing, they're given what they need. You spoke about a bitch that she'd only eat her bit of porridge or whatever was in the bowl unless there was a bit of meat on top of it. You get to know the greyhounds. They are each individual characters, and I suppose that's the reason why you've had such success over the years.
Well, I like to think so, because they're all different. Like kids, I've got 4 kids and 8 grandkids, and they're all different. Everyone's different. Some like a bit of steak and some like a bit of fish. They're just all different. But you got to get backs on them, haven't you? They got to eat, you know. And the dogs are the same, really, and pups and that, you know. I mean, we've had a fair bit of success and we've had a lot of fun, you know, over the years, you know. I mean, I've seen some tracks. I've been to some tracks that are closed. I mean, Slough we were at, Wembley we were at, Wimbledon we were at, Peterborough, Reading. All these tracks are shut, you know. It's such a shame, really, but such is life. We move on. We move
on and try and find the next flying machine. As it happens, your son Matt has one of the flying machines at present, Space Jet. She's a really top class stayer. I'm sure stayers were a big part of your career as a trainer through the years.
Yeah, they were a bit, but we like the money in front usually. That's how we went on the flapping days. You want the money in front, and that's why. I mean, we had a dog here called Ravage again. He won 29 straight sprint wins. That will never be done again, I don't think. I think that's a world record, 29 straight sprint wins. And they talk about the Hall of Fame and this and that. Well, he should be in it, shouldn't he? What sprinter's ever going to do 29 straight sprint wins?
Well, when you think of the great dogs of that generation, you think of the Skirlow Champ, the Ballyregan Bobs, and Ravage again is right there with them. He was an absolute sprinting freak. Willie Frew owned them. He sent them down to you after he had conquered.
No. Willie Frew trained him.
Yeah.
Willie Frew didn't own him. The lads owner, Rutherford, owned him, but Willie was a great pal of mine. And he phoned me one day. He said, TD, I've got this sprinting dog. He said, we've got to prove him down south. Would you take him on for me? I said, sure, I'll take him on for you, no problem. And he came to us unbeaten and he left us unbeaten. I think he won 6 or 7 of us, something like that. You know, and that was it, you know. So we've lost him since, Willie, and a lovely man, you know. And it was nice that he thought of us to send him down to us and for us to carry on. He won the Edrington Sprint at Hove, and I think he did the clock in the heat. He'd done his clock in the semi and done the clock again in the final. I don't think that's ever been done before.
Yeah,
just a bit special.
Yeah, and he was, as you say, he was a bit of a freak. You know, this wasn't the dog that the nights he'd miss it, and he'd still get there. You know, he had exceptional early speed.
Yeah, well,
he was also a wonderful trapper.
The strange thing, you never threw anything, you know. You had a few bits, you never threw much at all, you know. But that's how it is, isn't it? You know. I was just getting some breeding there the other day, and there's a dog that's behind me. That's a dog called Tiger Jazz. Now he was a bright lad dog out of a Monday champion bitch. I'm going to talk about a dog in a minute that's also out of a Monday champion bitch. I mean, the breeding comes out so much, you know. You don't realise, but it does come out. It comes out in them, you know.
Yeah, of course it does. You know, you've trained some great dogs, as we've said. Ravage again, Tiger Jazz. You mentioned there. I was going to go to him at some point. Cleana's Lady was perhaps one of your last great dogs. Two select stakes from Nottingham.
But she started off A4 at Reading. I think she was a good bet that day. She won the A4 at Reading, and then we put her in an open. She said, I don't think she'd be good enough for the open. I said, well, put her in anyway. She won that by 8 lengths, so that was all right. And then she is the only bitch to win 2 select stakes on the bounce. But you talk about gambling and what we fancied her strong. But what happened was, that Fred who sponsored it, he put the prices up before the trap draw was made. And then we were there when the trap draw was made and he never altered the prices. Well, we got trap 1, so the 5-1 was ridiculously big. So we smashed into it at 5-1. So good old Freddie gave us $7.5 grand for winning it. And God knows how much for having the bet, you know.
The 7.5 grand. You know? The 7.5 grand was just the cherry on top.
Yeah. You know, that was a bit of pocket money. The nice lads that owned it. And funnily enough, there's a story though. I will tell you the story about that. But it's because one of the guys that owned it was my accountant at the time, and she was in the select stakes final, Nottingham on a Monday night, and his daughter said to her mum, she said, "Oh, I want a dress for Monday night," and she said, "How do you mean a dress? You're going dog racing?" No, she said, "I want a new dress, mum." She said, "But you're only going dog racing." Yeah, she said, "But it's the select stakes, so it's important that, you know, I put this get a new dress and look nice." Of course, the situation was she was trying to get hold of Matthew. She was trying to pull Matthew. Of course, lo and behold, she won the select stakes, and Matthew's now married to her with 2 kids.
I don't believe you.
Yeah, true. As I'm sat here.
It was a good dress. So it was a good purchase.
Yeah, I was going to say, it must have been a nice dress. You know what I mean?
So you weren't the only one that backed a winner that night. She also backed a winner.
Yeah, she did. Yeah. I mean, Matt's he ain't the same as me. He don't punt. He don't have a bet, which I've said. He gets 10% of all I win, and if I lose, it don't cost him anything. So he's happy, isn't he?
Yeah.
But they've been everywhere. Those kids. I've taken them around the world, and I'm proud to have done that. Only out of dog racing and people I've met over the years and punts that we've had over the years. We've had some nice horses as well. I mean, we had a horse called Lord Sam. Lord Sam won his first 9. We refused $500,000 for him twice. McManus tried to buy him.
He was named after Lord Sam Vesti, who was a great pal of yours.
He was, yeah, but do you know why that was? You don't really know why that was. I'll tell you what happened. In the day, it was fact. We didn't have any emails. It was fax machines. So I'd actually picked the horse out for my late wife, and she said, "Well, that's a lovely horse." Anyway, so I sent the breeding off to Sam. Victor Dartnall had the horse up in North Devon. I sent the breeding to Sam, and he said, he's unraced, unnamed. He said, "Yeah, we'll have that. Put me down for a third of that." He said, "I'll have that." He said, "Send it to Henrietta, because Henrietta Knight is his sister-in-law." So I said, "Well, I can't send it to Henrietta, Sam." I said, "Because Victor sourced the horse and Victor will be training the horse. So if you're coming in, it's got to stay where it is." He said, "Well, if it stays where it is, my sister-in-law won't talk to me, neither will my wife," he said. So in that case, I'm out, he said. And that was it. So, of course, then we said, "All right, what we'll do, we'll call him Lord Sam." And of course, Sam every day looked at the paper and he's won again. That bloody horse has won again, Great friend of mine, great pal of mine. These kids have still got dogs with us now,
I was going to say, did he own many dogs with you over the years?
So I didn't hear you.
I was going to say, did he own many dogs with you over the years?
He did, yeah. He even had to go out breeding a few, So, plenty of dogs for me. He used to go to Wembley when we started Wednesdays as well. He'd go Monday and Wednesday when he was in town, and then he'd go to Stole Park for the weekend. But
you mentioned there about Wembley. You trained at Wembley for a while, Wimbledon, Reading, Slough. Was there a spiritual home, or was there one track in particular that you missed?
Yeah, Wembley. Wembley was such a good galloping track. You could come from behind there, you could pass on the bends there. I mean, when I started, it was turf, and then they sanded it. But when it was turf, it was okay. Some nights it favoured the outside ridiculously, but it was always a safe track, and they could gallop round there. And being as I used to gallop as a kid, when my daddy was so proud when we got the contract there, and we had a lot of good days there, real good days there,
I was told a story of a helicopter landing in was it back to Wembley with Roger Waters of Pink Floyd Flame and your great pal Patsy Byrne?
Yeah, well, Roger Waters came here one day with Ted Dexter, pal of mine, and Ted had a few pups. He said, "Well, I'm going to bring a chap over." He said he might have a pair of those pups. I said, "Well, no problem." So in he comes with this chap, didn't know from Adam. So I said, "Well, we'll take him over to gallop." So as I'm taking these dogs up, there was a brindle dog and a white and brindle dog. He said, "Well, what do you?" I said, "Well, I think of the two of them, I think the white and brindle dog is more genuine." I said, "I'm not so sure about the brindle dog. Don't give it. He just gives you enough, I think." I said, "It's only an opinion. It could change as they get older." So I said, "This fella, what do you do for a living?" He said, "Oh, I started a band." So I've gone, "Any good?" He said, "Yeah, you might have heard." I said, "Who's that?" He said, "Pink Floyd." Oh, dear, oh, Lord. That's exactly what I said. And from that day, he was a dear friend of mine. So he knew I wasn't at him because he started Pink Floyd off, But then I won my first classic for him. I won the Laurels for him with Dean Sardine. And that was my first classic at Wimbledon, We won the Puppy Derby that year. The first year we went into Wimbledon, we won the Puppy Derby. We had first, second, and third in that. And then his dog went on to win the Laurels. And then he also went on to win a big race at Walthamstow, the Silver Corrie one there. But Roger's been a dear friend of mine for a long time. Yeah. In fact, he took us to Coachella recently, 2 years ago. There, have you heard of Coachella? It's
over in the States, over in the States, big music festival.
Yes, it's like the American sort of where they had it just recently. Yeah, So he said, "Would you come?" He said on the Friday. it's the Rolling Stones and Bob Dylan. On the Saturday, it's Neil Young and Paul McCartney. And on the Sunday, he said it's me and the Who. Would you come?
You're
come.
younger than all the acts, in fairness, Terry.
So we've gone to Palm Springs. I said, can I bring so I took 4 school pals with me. And we had an absolute, can you imagine? We had an absolute ball. An absolute ball. And I'm so glad we went because my dear pal, he died recently, you know, and it was lovely to take him over there and have a bit of fun, proper fun, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Away from dogs and gambling and 6 to 4 and all, you know, it's just nice to do that, you know. And of course, there we are. We're about, I suppose, 6 foot from the front of the stage, being treated to everything that we wanted. Then whatever you wanted was there for you, you know what I mean? Proper man. He's still alive, Rogers. He's touring now. I mean, he lives in America. When they stopped the fox hunt, and he moved from here to America, and he's still touring now in North America. I mean, I think the Dark Side of the Moon was in the top 10 for 12 years. Do you know what I mean? That's a sort of, you know.
Oh, you're talking a true superstar there. But the fact that he was a greyhound man that thoroughly enjoyed it and was a great friend of yours, you know, it's testament to the sport and how
I'll tell you
back then.
Yeah, well, as a lyricist, they say he was just behind Bob Dylan. They reckon Bob Dylan's the best, and he was the second best. Well, he had this dog with me, and the dog was called Farmer Patrick, and he used to do Wembley, and he'd be rehearsing at Wembley. Then he'd come in to watch the dog run. This dog's probably running in a later race, an A1 race. So he's still on the tips. We've had the few quid on this dog anyway. He comes around the last bend, and his nickname was Paddy. Because Farmer Patrick, we called just his nickname was Paddy. And he's still on the steps. The dog's about 4 clear. And he shouts, "Go on!" And he can't think of the dog's name. So he goes, "Go on, dog." Which I found hilarious for a man that has to remember all those words and all those lines and all this. He couldn't remember the name of the dog, so he just shouted out. Go. There's 6 dogs. He's going, "Go on." I said, "Well, which one do you think you were shouting at then, Roger?" But, you know, yeah. Special man.
I like it. We spoke,
and he took us over to Berlin when the Berlin Wall was knocked down. He did the Wall concert at Berlin. I mean, took my wife and I, you know. And he said, "It's a private jet. We'll come and pick you up." He come and picked us up. We went to Heathrow. Now, a private jet, you thought would be about a dozen people on this jet. It's only a jumbo jet we get on. The private jet's a jumbo jet. There's all his friends and neighbours and unbelievable. Just another day, really. But there you go.
Another day. The fall of the Berlin Wall is not quite just another day, though, Terry. I suppose. It's an amazing that greyhound racing led you to these places.
Well, that's what I'm saying, you know, and it did, and it has done over the years. And I'm just amazed at the people that I've met during the people I've met and the things that I've done through the dogs. You know, unbelievable. You know, I mean, Patsy was our biggest owner just before he died. You know, he was just unbelievable, Patsy. You know. Yeah, we had a Derby finalist for him, which was nice. Well, 2 Derby. We had a Derby finalist, 3 Derby finalists. We had two English Derby finalists and an Irish Derby finalist. Once a nice competition. We won a big race for him at Swindon, the Ark. We won, and this dog called Ballymac Crime. We had 30. I said, Patsy is too big at 33, and that's all Patsy wanted to do. It was too big, so we've steamed onto this dog at 33, and he duly obliged. He just got up on the line in the final, so. You need to get a payday, don't you? You need to get a payday.
That's what the sport was about and continues to be about. Everyone wants to land a touch every now and again. You mentioned the 3 Derby finalists. One would have been in Ireland. Was it Ballymac Under or Ballymac Russo? They were brothers, weren't they?
It was Ballymac Russo, but actually Ballymac Under was probably the better dog. He won about his first 6 or 7, and then he had an altercation, and he never came back right after that. But there you go. Yeah, but Russo was a good dog. He sort of wanted his own way a bit, really. I mean, he went round Shelbourne, I think he did 29.70 in his first trial round Shelbourne over the 550, and he never betted that time. He got to the final and he won the semi-final, but I don't think he ever betted his first run round there, which sort of shows you a bit. He's keeping a bit of himself, I think. I don't know, you know.
I think the clock around then was probably still around 29.57 or so. So it was still a hell of a run. He was only a couple of lengths off the clock, as you say. A very talented greyhound. What about the 2 English Derby finalists, Terry? What were they?
Say again?
What were the 2 English Derby finalists you had?
He had Russo and he had Glenard Sunrise. They both won their semi-finals.
Yeah.
You know, in the same year. Cleanest Lady was in the final of the Derby as well. And Philo Ironman came second in the Philo Ironman came second. It was 150 grand with the winner, and the second got 7.5. How bad was that? You know, terrible, really.
No,
I think
that's
Blue
not good.
Square. I don't know who's sponsored. It's not good, especially when you own the second. Well, I didn't.
Yeah.
The guy that owned it. You know what I mean? So
I remember Farlow
yeah.
Ironman. He was punted for pounds, shillings, and pence in Derby final night. He went off favourite.
Yeah, but no. Yeah, but let me Let me just reiterate what happened there. We never had a tanner on that dog that night because they're going to get 150 if he wins. I'll tell you what happened there. John Emwood was making a book there, and they had a market in the morning to say what dog's going to go off favourite, and he's bet the dog to go off favourite and made it favourite by foul means or fit. I don't know how he did it, but it wasn't any of our money. You know what I mean? That's how I think it went anyway.
I know it. You have to sort of tip your cap to that one.
Well, you do, of course you do. I mean, you know, you've got to try and find an edge, haven't you? You've got to try and find an edge. Now, I've got a story I was going to tell you about the Derby. If you want me, this is quite a nice story, really. I quite like this story. Ted Dexter, I said to you earlier, had some pups here with me. And go back to the Reading days. It might be quite a long story. You're all right with this, aren't you?
Work away, Terry. They're the best type.
Right. I'll tell you what happened. He had this bitch called Lovely Jazz. And that was the side behind me, Tiger Jazz, out of Westmead Lace. Well-bred bitch, anyway. I still think she'd run well tonight, Ted, down at Reading. I think she's about an A2, A3, somewhere around there. Anyway, he said, well, have us a couple of £100. I said, yeah, no problem. And I've gone with him. So we've had 400 quid on this bitch. Anyway, John Banks was making a book there at the time. He lived local to Reading. He lived sort of Sunningdale that way, I think. Anyway, he took the 400 quid. She's got beat. Paid in the 400 quid. Done. Finished. So the following week, I said, and she was one of them that was so unlucky, it was unreal. But it happens, doesn't it? These things happen. Paid him. The following week, Ted said, well, I said, look, Ted, we've got to try and get the money back. We'll have a bit more maybe. And we had a few lads ready to put the few quid on this lovely spell. Anyway. And I'm left with Banks on the end. I thought, well, I'll have him because he had the 400 quid of us last week. Anyway, all the lads have gone in. I've gone into Banks. Now, John Banks wasn't standing on the joint that night. His son was, Jeff Banks. So I've gone with the 400 quid, the same bet as I had the week before. And it's fight. So I said 1,000 to 4. He said, you've got nothing. Shrubbed the board. The bitch has won. He just left me stood there. I thought, this ain't quite right, you know, but it happens. We've all been there and it happens. So don't worry about it. Anyway, keep that bit in your mind. You've got that story in your mind.
That's planted.
About John Banks and Jeff Banks. Okay. 2 dogs come into me from Joe Booth Adam. And you'll know the dogs. One was called Long Spell and one was called Squire Cass. Now, Squire Cass had done the clock at Cork. And he finished up with Nick Savary. He was in the final of a puppy derby. I was in the same final as him, but he was coughing that night. I could see he was visibly coughing. Whether he was or whether sometimes dogs choke a bit on the lead, but he just didn't look right anyway. He ran bad. He then got to Sava. Sorry, he was with Sava. He went to Joe Booth, and John Carwin had Long Spell. I give 50 grand for that dog originally from Pat Dalton. And he got knocked out in the first round of the derby. So I'm finished up. I'm third man in with these 2 dogs. So anyway, Squire Cass looked like an old sheepdog, you know, when he come in. But you could see that, well, the forms there, he'd done the clock at Cork. So I thought, well, I can get him back to somewhere near what he was. We've got a chance. And each time he's coming back and coming. It was about the January time. Bearing in mind, June is the derby at White City. So he's coming to himself and coming to himself. And I give him a few gallops and he was coming to himself. I give him a sprint. He went well. So this Sunday morning, I set off. Now I thought, I take these 2 dogs, Long Spell and Squire Cass, to a place called Vernon Ford's schooling track at Lingfield. All the lads used it. It was a good McGee Air, very, very well-kept track, a good test of a greyhound, 480 metres. Anyway, I said, I'll get there early. He said, you'll be first on. Okay, no problem, get there. So I put both the dogs round, and he comes down from the air driving box and says to me, you can't believe this. I said, what's that? He said, Well, the first one's done the clock, he said, and the second one's done the other dog's clock. Now, I know he could be right, but I now got to try and tell him that he's wrong. So I said, no, your timing's got to be wrong. I said, they're not good enough to do clocks. Knowing full well they've both done the clocks, you know what I mean? Knowing I thought I've got them now. So off I go anyway. I phoned the owner. Now, the owner of these dogs were the Turner brothers, Philip, Ray, Brian and Eddie. They were the Turkish Turners in Spalding. Money people, like good people, like punting. So I said, look, we've got to try and make our derby final the first round of the derby at White City, because when you entered, you were running. There was none of this, so many dogs. If you entered, you were running, and that was it. So we got Squire Cass in this race. So he said, well, what we'll do, he said, we've got a man, he said, that'll last what we want. He said, at maybe a shorter price, he said, but it'll last what we want in the crowd, he said. I said, who's that? Oh, he said, it's John Banks. I thought, well, that's handy, because we owe him one, don't we, John Banks? So I said, okay. So I'll give him my few quid, and I got their few. He said, but what we're going to do, when he tries to have it back, he said, the lads will be in the bookmakers, and they'll take everything that's on the balls. He won't be able to have it back. He'll have it right up in. So they've had, I think the dog was probably 9-2, but because they want such a lumpy bet, Banks allowing 4-1 for the lot. So they've had 4-1 for the lot, but they've also had all the 9-2, everything that was showing. As they're having a bet with Banks, they've swept up and taken every chalk mark that was there, and the dog went and won, didn't he? So that's the one that we owed John Banks. So that was lovely to win that. Squire Cash. Then he come out and he won the All England Cup. It was smashing dog.
A long spell turned into a proper greyhound as well for you. He went to stud.
Long spell. Yeah, I went to see him at stud. He went to stud in America. Funny enough, I went to see him over there. He never threw too much, but when we got hold of him, I got the dog right, and we put him in a Pall Mall at Haringey.
Oh, Haringey. It was Haringey.
No, it was Haringey. It was Haringey in the day. He won his first round, money on. Second round, money on. Semi-final, money on. And he got the final, and there was a dog in the race that a very, very fast dog that you'd have a job because he just didn't have a dog called Yankee Express.
Yeah.
And he beat us in the final. But we got a lot of money out of that dog, yeah. Long spell. Nice dog.
Your training days coincided with your punting days, obviously, as well. Tell us about the plaque. Is the plaque still on the wall?
Oh yeah, the plaque's still there. That's one of the other fella called Tom Casagrande. We went into Wembley, and he had the Churchtown dogs, and he had every Churchtown dog he had. We tried to bring it through the grades, and it usually worked for him. You know what I mean? So he said, I'm going to put a plaque up. So I said, okay, bring the plaque. What's the plaque say? It's got on it. And I had a new range put up at the time, and he said, these kennels are kindly sponsored by the Wembley Stadium bookmakers, and it's still up there now.
And is that the case?
Yeah, well, more or less. I mean, you couldn't get money out of keeping greyhounds. How are you going to get money out of keeping greyhounds? You used to charge £5 or £6 a day. You spend more than that on them. They weren't paying you much for running dogs around. So how are you going to get money? You know, you couldn't get money. Yeah, I mean, we had a bitch there called Ali Bally. This is a good story. She started at A9. She won the A9. We got a few good A9. Then she went up. Then she went A8. She won. Then they put her up. She went too quick in the A8. They put her A6 and she won. And then she won the A5 too quick. Put her up to the A3 and she won it. And I said, right, lads, we'll put her in the Trafalgar Cup. And she won the Trafalgar Cup. Better again. Now she's gone from A9 to the Trafalgar Cup. She's got beat in the semi-final, but she won the Summer Cup. She won the Trafalgar Cup in 28.95. Well, if a dog broke 29 at Wembley, it's a proper dog. I mean, an absolute proper dog. And she's done her 28.95. Well, I've gone up to the restaurant, and old Adam Jackson's there, and he's got a bottle of champagne. So come on, Adam, have a drink. So we're all standing around having a drink. So he's picked up his glass, and he said, I'll raise a glass, he said. I want a drink, he said, to Ali Bally. And I think he's going to say, get in that bitch to do a 28.95. He said, get in that bitch graded in an A9 with some feet.
I'll tell you one thing, he's not wrong, Terry. He isn't wrong.
Hilarious.
You probably ran against the stewards a few times over the years. Time finding was one thing that often you got pulled up on. Was it a badge of honor, or was it something you regret?
Well, when you've got young dogs and you're trying to bring them on, that's what you're trying to do. If a man buys a dog, you're trying to get it paid for the man. You know, like now, a dog gets great. Like just now, the other call, the dog's broke his up. Well, who's going to pay for that? Who pays for that dog the man's bought? We had one the other day. It broke 2 metal cables at its second trial, 9 grams of a dog. You know, sometimes the owner's got to have a chance. You've got to give the owner a chance, you know, and sometimes they get in the grading and they win, you know. And good luck to them, you know. But I mean, bitches coming out of season, they're the ones, and young dogs always find time, wouldn't they?
Of course,
You've got to try and, you know, if you feed them properly and do them properly, they'll find time. You know, you soon make an A6 dog an A4 dog if it's having the best of grub and the best of exercise and the best of everything. When it wasn't getting that, it's just knowing when it's gonna win the A4. Just really, or do the A4 time.
You're also in a situation where dogs develop at a different rate. Who's to say a dog having its 4th or 5th time in a box, you know, one could do, you know, 29 seconds, the next could do 30 seconds, but 2 weeks later they could be both doing 28.90. Do you know what I mean? They can develop at different rates and whatnot.
Yeah, but you see, what annoys me is if there's no money for them, there's no inquiry.
Yeah.
What's that about? If they find time and they're 8 to 1, oh, that's okay. If they find time and they're 4 to 6, you're up against it. Well, that shouldn't be so. And they also grade dogs on what the bookmaker. So he's made him 4 to 6 in an A4. We put him in an A3. Why? He's got beat at the A4 because they made him 4 to 6. They're grading dogs on bookmakers, you know.
Tell me this. Go ahead.
I was going to tell you a special story. This paid for the bungalow, really. This helped pay for the bungalow, this story. And it was down to a fella called Dave Kinchett. You might have heard of him, you might not have done.
No.
Dave Kinchett was Tom Johnson's head man when he trained West Park Mustard. And the training position came up at White City. So he took the training position. Well, my pal had a dog and he said, look, this dog's capable of winning the Derby. And he weren't a bullshit. He knew dogs inside out, been flapping with me all my life. I knew him and he knew me. He said, look, TD, this dog could win the Derby. He said, I'm going to put it in White City for a few graded races. He said, get him acclimatised to the place in January, you know, December, January time. So he took him down and gave the dog to Dave Kinchett. He had his trials and they put him in an A4, I think. I think it was an A4. And he said, well, this dog, he's got to win. He can't get beat in an A4 like his own class, this dog. And the dog got beat. So I put the dog in an A5. The dog got beat again. So he went down there to Northall. I said, bring that dog out that I bought 6 weeks ago this year. And the kid was there and he bought this brindle dog out. And he said, no, this isn't the dog I bought in there. He said, that's a rasher. He said, the dog I bought in was a big 75, 76 pound brindle dog. You got the wrong dog. No, he said, this is the dog, he said. Oh, he said, okay, put him on the mower. He said, I'm not having this. So then he phoned me. He said, look, this dog's in a terrible state. It happens sometimes. I understand that. He said, the dog's in a terrible state. But he said, we'll get him right for the Derby. He said, we got to start backing him we started backing him at 500 to 1. He took that. I took the 400 to 1. We were still backing him Derby final night and he won at 33 to 1, Tartan Cart. And that paid for most of this bungalow. And then they said it was a bit of a fluke. They said it was a bit of a fluke, and then he come out and smashed the clock at Wembley in the St Edger final. So it wasn't much of a fluke. But because Dave Kinchett weren't very good at his job, they thought the dog was putting the fingers, an owner just putting an A5 dog in, as owners do, don't they?
Yeah.
See what I mean? So that's a proper story, that. And I was funny enough. I was with the guy on Saturday, and I spent most of the night at Toaster talking to him for 3 hours. We hadn't seen each other maybe 10 years. I don't know. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tell me this, that like you spoke there, obviously that's not the normal modus operandi. The dogs are generally given all the very best of treatment. Just that it was a dog that just didn't quite settle, and had lost his coat, had lost his condition, had lost his back, and he worked his way back to a position where he could run his very best.
These things
Normally,
happen. Sometimes dogs don't settle, and that's but you've got to be patient. They shouldn't be running when they're like that. Do you know what I mean? That's just how it is. But it's difficult to say it. But anyway, it was nice we got the 500 and 401.
from a punting point of view, was there a modus operandi? Was there a way that you normally went about it? Was it a case of trying to get a young dog and bring him along slowly?
Well, that's it. That's the key to it. The key to it is getting young dogs. If you get young dogs that just had one run, you've got a chance, haven't you? You've got a chance. There's nothing on their Irish, but they might have had a one flashy trial, and it's not on their Irish book. So you're actually showing up an unraced dog, and that's you, But sometimes it comes right. Sometimes Patsy bought those two dogs unraced, Ballymac Under and Ballymac Russo. You give 30 grand from both unraced. So he took a chance and it came right for him.
In terms of, those young dogs, was it a case of you always got on course, or was there off course situations, or how did you go about it? What was the modus? Like, what was it always?
In the day at Wembley, you had Tony Morris and you had the Power Brothers and you had Dougie Tyler. So wherever you wanted on, you could get on. You didn't have to worry about betting off course, because you get 30 or 40,000. Michael Buckley going to 110,000 or 40 without blinking. That's how it was in the day. That's how it was. Now you're going to have like 200 quid and it's gone. They scrub it and, I can't get on this. So in the day, Tony Morris would lay you. Then he say lay you 5-2. The next thing he put up 3-1. Do you want some more? That's how they were, because it was a market. But now it's a cartel. It's not a market anymore. It used to be a betting market, but it isn't now. It's a cartel, because they're all trying to nick a few quid on the exchanges, and it's just not good.
You miss those days?
You sure I do, because it's not right. Because say an owner's got a dog and all of a sudden he might fancy a bit. 3-6 bet 3-6. If I got 4-1, next thing it's even money, and he ain't had a bet. If there was a proper betting market at the track, and we started race at 7:30 at night, 8 o'clock at night, then those days would come back. But when they start betting at 8 o'clock in the morning, and you can bet dogs the next day, and it's just for the bookmakers now. I don't think the owners have as much say as they should, really. There's another thing. In Ireland, you got every track. They've got a nice clock there. The clock comes up, and the dog breaks a beam, and up it comes the time it's done. Well, over here we haven't got that. That's wrong. It's wrong. It should all be there. The sectionals, the time the dogs done for the trials, whatever, should all be there, but it isn't. And it's tantamount to skullduggery, isn't it? You can't, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and the GBG thought they should say, look, we're not going to license you to race until you get a clock put in there. They'd soon get a clock put in, wouldn't they?
The clock has been there ever since I was a child. The first thing you always do after a race in Ireland is look to the clock, and it gives you a great peace of mind knowing straight away you know exactly what the clock is.
Well, surely that's how it should be. You look at Australian racing, and they got every section of every race. As soon as they go over the line, it's there. If you run the London Marathon, I haven't, but Matt has. As soon as you go over the line, your time comes up. Well, what? It's crazy. Why can't that happen with dog racing? You've got the English Derby. Why can't that happen with the English Derby? It's ridiculous. They had a blank canvas and they built Toaster. With a blank canvas, we should have expected better, really.
Terry, tell me this. Any ambitions remaining in the sport? Is there anything that you still want to tick the box with?
Well, we'd obviously like to try and win the Derby, but, we've won probably mostly everything else. We won, really, more or less, which is nice. We had a couple of golden jackets with 2V Trophy and Ledgers, and some of the races have gone Greenwich Cup. We won 2 of those Greenwich Cups. A lovely competition to win. Big competition at Walthamstow, Birmingham Cup. Matt would like to win the Oaks, actually. He's come second in it, and he'd like to win the Oaks. So we're trying to find a bitch or two to go in the Oaks. That's at Prairie Bar this year, I think.
And tell me this: do you breed anymore, or is it just purely training?
No, well, we did breed a little bit there, but to be honest with you, I spoke to Dolores Ruth about a dog, and she said, look, I had a bitch there, and it was similarly read to one of her bitches. She said, look, she said, go to this dog. She said, you will not be disappointed. And to be fair to her, the dogs this bitch produced were stunning, absolutely stunning looking dogs, kill off prey. But when they started running, 1 minute they get in front of their aeroplanes, when they get behind, they don't want to go. They don't want to chase. And it wasn't her fault. She was right about the limbs that they have. And I mean, there are some stunning looking dogs out of kill off prey. But as far as being punting machines, no, they're not. They're fast dogs, but
he's
when
a
they
dog,
get behind, they're not the same.
Produced plenty. They generally needed 2 years of age. I remember Don Cuddy. Don Cuddy was a big believer in Kinlochbray when he first came over.
Yeah, Don Cuddy. Yeah, he was a great friend of Harry Finlay, wasn't he? Don Cuddy. Yeah. I think he's more of Don was more of a coursing man, wasn't he?
A bit of everything. He was a Hall of Famer on both sides of the Irish Sea, or on both sides of the Atlantic. Say he was a legend in the sport. Tell me this, Terry. A few quick fire questions for you. Fastest dog you ever put a lead on?
You have to say Ravage again, wouldn't you, for the fastest dog, I suppose.
In terms of pure speed, of
course. He was fast. I mean, he was fast.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been plenty. I mean, 4 bend dogs, 2 bend dogs, 6 bend dogs. I've had some really fast dogs here. I mean, he was a fast dog, a dog called Me Buddy. Me Buddy, he won the Fengate Collar, he won the Peterborough Derby, he won the Guys and Dogs. He won a race once, and the fellow that owned him was a fellow called Jonathan Duffy, whose father owned Whisper Wishes. And Jonathan said, well, my dad's won the Derby, he won the last Derby at White City. He said, I want to win the Derby. And I bought this dog from Liam Downing's sister. I bought him from. Never give a lot of money for him. We give enough, but not fortunes. And he never stopped winning races, this dog. He never stopped winning races. Anyway, there was a puppy race at Wimbledon. So I said to John, we go to this puppy race. So Matt said, well, we better trial him round there. He's one of these dogs that you didn't have to trial him. I knew him. I knew what he'd do. If that's him, he didn't have to trial him. So I said, look, Matt, we won't trial him. I said, just put him in, see how we go with the draw. I think you got to track 1 or 2 anyway. We bet the dog 7-2 for a nice few quid, and he won all right. And as we get this trophy, I said to Matt, you can trial him now if you want to. Because if we'd have trialed him, he'd have been 6-4. Do you understand?
He'd have been 4-6.
Yeah, he would have been. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Your best day in the sport?
I suppose one of my best days was that old bitch that had distemper coming out and winning the Cambridge Cup and doing the track record. I mean, that was just unreal. That couldn't happen. You know what I mean? But I suppose I won the Wood Lane Stakes once at White City, and the dog beat Ballinaska Band, who that year won the Derby.
Yeah. But
my late wife lived not far from White City. She lived at East Acton, just round the corner. In fact, I got married on Derby Day when Mutt Silver won the Derby, and the church was as near White City as you could be. But this day, her father weren't really into ground racing. He was a plumber, nice fella, but he weren't into gambling and my style. He was a bit worried about me taking on his daughter, you know what I mean? So I said, well, look, come to White City. I said, we're in this final, we might have a chance. And of course, he came, and the dog won the Wood Lane, and all of a sudden it was, have you seen my future son-in-law, what he's doing? You know, he was right on my side after that, So that was a good day, the Wood Lane at White City. Eddie Costello owned that dog,
Yeah. Eddie got over the Derby line with he won the Irish Derby with I was going to say Ballintubber. Was it Ballintubber?
Hit the lid, did he win it with or not? No.
Hit the lid. He only hit the lid with Ginger, yeah. Worst day in the sport. Obviously, we won't spend too long on this one, but is there a day that you would sooner forget?
Well, the worst day, one of the worst days was, there's a good few of them, but I had a good bitch called Annika, and she won the Greenwich Cup, and the next race she had was at Hove, and she came out of the box and broke her foreleg in 3 places. So that wasn't a very nice day. But to be fair, the vet was going to. I said no. We patched her up and we found home for her, which was great. But you get some bad days as well. I mean, there's more downs than ups, isn't there?
Yeah,
And
very
I'm
nice.
just pleased. I'm so pleased that only my son went into the game. My daughters they've all got their own houses and they've all gone their different ways. They all went to university. Matt could have gone, but he didn't want to stay here with the dogs and do the dogs. And I think it's hard. It's hard for a young man with a mortgage and kids. It's 24/7, isn't it? You know,
Yeah.
it is 24/7, and it's just and the rewards aren't enough. Really, they're not enough.
Yeah.
You know, if you have a punt, that's okay, but people don't like you having a punt. I mean, the bookmakers don't. Oh, he has a bet. Well, so what difference? You know what I mean?
Yeah. That'll bring me to my next
Go on.
question. What was your biggest single win? Your best day punting?
My best day punting. Well, that probably goes back to Lord Sam, and we bet him in a race at Huntingdon to get a few. This is on the all side, I think, to get a nice few quid, and he won. And then Victor happened to say, he said, "Well, I've got horse running. I think it was Aintree. In the bumper." He said, "You'd have a big chance. It's a big price." And he was 25 to 1, so we lumped on him and he won as well. So that was a good old do. But I mean, dog wise, Cleanest Lady, we bet her for absolute fortune to get to the Derby final, which she did do. She got beat by Westmead, but that was like winning the Derby. To get her in the final was like winning the Derby, you know. And all the boys got paid, you know. They all got paid, and it was great, really, you know. There's been a load of. We won the Puppy Classic there with a dog called Philo Iceman. Jonathan Duffy owned that as well. And we got a nice few quid out of him. And we got a nice few quid out of another bit.
I used to know Jonathan. You don't see him around too often these days, unfortunately.
He's gone more in the horses now. I saw him down at Cheltenham there. He's gone more horsey fight now. Whether he'll come back to the dogs or not, I don't know. He might do. But he sold up. He sold the business there down at Kew, and he's got some units now.
Lovely. Dinner guests. If you had to have yourself and 3 other guests for dinner, alive, dead, it doesn't matter. 3 dream dinner guests.
3 dinner guests.
Yes.
Definitely my late wife. She'd be out to cook the dinner.
That's Christine, is it?
3 dinner guests. I'd have another pal of mine that's died, Derek Crane, because he's the funniest man on 2 legs. Well, he was before he died. I mean, oh dear, I could tell you a million stories about him. But 3 dinner guests. I'd probably have Barney Curley. I don't know, probably Patsy, I suppose. Yeah, Patsy and Barney Curley.
That'd be good sport there.
And maybe Ted Dexter. Ted was a good old boy, you know. Ted, he wrote a book recently, last year, 85 Not Out, and then he died at 86. Yeah, a lovely man.
I like it.
I went up to see him. I went up to see him, and I said, he was laying there, and he was the first one. He went, "Terence," and that's the last word he uttered. He died after that. Wow. In Wolverhampton, he was. Yeah, a lovely man. I've had a lot of fun with him. And I only came by him because he came to Reading one night. He said, "I'm trying to find Mr. Dartnall." And I said, "You can find him over there." And we all had a little pitch where we stood, didn't we, at different tracks. He came over, he said, "I'm Ted Dexter," he said, "and my mother's maiden name is Dartnall, spelt the same as yours." He said, "So we are related." He said, "I'd like you to find me a dog," he said, and something a bit special. He said, "There's my number. Get hold of it." Anyway, 6 months went by and I found this bitch. I phoned you, actually. I thought you'd forgotten me. Anyone else would have rung me the next day. I said, "Well, it takes a bit of time anyway." I said, "There's a bitch running in the water for glass tonight. Jim Ryan trains her." I said, "She's unbeaten so far. Might come the money." He said, "Can you get to Denham Airport at 11 o'clock? I said, "Yeah, I can." I went down to Denham Airport, jumped in his Cessna. The next thing he said, "Well, take over," and I'm flying this bloody plane over the RSC. We landed at Waterford. Got out. I said, "Look, let me do the talking, Ted. Don't." I said, "He'll start too high. Let me," or Mr. Dexter. I didn't know him as Ted then, Mr. Dexter. Yeah. Anyway, we landed the plane. We went to Jim Ryan's place. And the next thing is, I said, "Come out there, Louis." So I bought the bitch. So God knows, I mean, he'd already bought it. So I know we'd have got it 2 or 3 grand cheaper, but he bought the bitch at that, and she was a Monley champion, which was Minnesota Marsha, yeah. Minnesota Marsha. And that was the first onset. It was a bit screwy, but she won the Billy King Cup up at Shawfield, you know. And old Ted was a friend for many, many years. Still a friend when he died, you know. A long, long time I knew Ted, you know. And he brought different people. Because he played golf at Sunningdale, which isn't that far from us, he'd bring different people in. Michael Buckley. And then Lord Vesey said, well, if you're training with Ted, you'll be able to train for me. Roger Waters, you know, Colin Inglewood Mackenzie. Oh, you know, plenty of faces, you know. Jack Ramsden. I mean, Jack Ramsden, he was one of the best handicappers there ever was, Jack Ramsden. He had a dog here with Paul Webber and a lot of racing people, hell of a lot of racing. Anyway, it was down to run on Gold Cup Day at Ascot. It was an afternoon meeting at Wimbledon, and it was called Thunder Road. And I said to Matt, look, get this dog right. I said, then we'll get a few quid out of this dog. And he was coming home from college, Matt, and doing a bit. I said, look, you got 200 quid to run. Do you want the wages? Do you want it? No, he said, put it on the dog. I need a new bike. Anyway, we put the money on the dog. And Jack Ramsden said, look, tell Dartnall, he said, he can have £100 for every length it wins by. He said, but he's got to pay me £100 for every length it loses by. I said, that's all right. That'll do me. Anyway, we went to Ascot. The betting shop used to be on the side there where the champagne bar is. There was a bigger cheer went up when this dog went over the line at Wimbledon than the Gold Cup at Ascot. He won by 4 lengths, so Jack Ramsden had to give me 400 quid. Yeah. Another story.
I like it.
There's always a story, isn't there? Do you know what I mean? There's so many stories, and you know, I mean, we had a box at Cheltenham for about 14 years on the winning line, and some of the stories in that box, and some of the people who's been up in that box, are just phenomenal, really.
Many dogs bought out of that box. Was there a case of, we're back to winner, get us a dog?
Say again, Ian?
I said, was there a case of, we've just backed a winner, find us a dog?
Oh, yeah, many times. But you see, Patsy's box was next door. So Patsy's box was one side and we're the other side. So by the end of the meeting, it was just like a free-for-all, really. He come in and get a bottle of gin, and we go in there and get a bottle of vodka, and da-di-da-di-da. And always say we get a dog, yeah, TD will have a dog for you. And it always helps, doesn't it? They like it. I mean, I met him, what's he called? The fellow, what's her name? I'm trying to think of her name now. He's one of the richest blokes in England, isn't he? I can't think of him now. I'll think of it in a minute. Anyway, he phoned me up, Henderson. He said, look, can you bring a dog to a charity do? I said, yeah, I'll bring a dog, no problem. And I went to this charity do, and this chap's come up to me, Graham Wiley. He said, look, I'm under instructions, he said. He said, my wife said, I can't leave this place without taking this dog home. Okay. So whatever he went for, he was going to buy it, the fella, which he did do, you know. So she was well pleased with this dog, and it won a few races. And then she said, well, we get another dog. And then I went to Punchestown, and she's there with Graham Wiley, and he's in the company, Lee Westwood. And Lee Westwood was going out then with her sister, Andrew Wiley's sister. So she said, look, get us a dog, she said, but I want something decent bits for myself and Lee, said, because he's so lucky. And I bought my way Shelley, and she won the Brighton Bell.
Wow.
And they got a nice few quid out of it, you know, just because I was at Punchestown that day, and, you know.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's the way it happens. Last but certainly not least, the best advice you've ever been given in the sport? The best advice?
Well, I went to the lads, Sam's two sons were at Eton, and they asked me to go do a lecture at Eton on the dogs. They had like a sport day there, and all sorts of people have been there. Colin Inglewood Mackenzie, the cricketer fella, and Compton Hellier, the guy that started off Sporting Index, he'd been there. So they said, could you come and see the lads and do whatever? So I took Dean Sardine, who was at Stal at the time, with me, and Matt came with me. And I went through all the thing of trying to get a few quid with a dog and setting this up and setting up. And when you get the money, you can pay the milkman and pay the meat man and pay this and pay that, and make sure you don't owe anyone. I said, the key to this is patience. And you must have patience, and more patience. Well, 30 years after, at Windsor, and the lad said, come and meet our trainer, TD. You've got to meet our trainer, have a beer with the trainer. I went to see the trainer, Hugo Palmer. And he said, he said, this is Hugh. Hello, Hugo. How are you? I said, I don't think I've met you. Yes, he said, I have met you, he said. I said, have you? And I'm thinking he's going to come out with a story now. We had too many beers and died. But he said, yeah, I have met you, he said. He said, I always remember what you said, he said. I was in the audience when you give the speech, he said, at Eton. He said, and you said patience, patience, and more patience. He said, and I've always gone by that. How nice was that? You know?
Yeah, that's lovely. That's a great way. That's a great way to finish it. I can tell you that, Terry. We've gone from Eton to Coachella to the Berlin Wall to in private jets with Roger Waters to Royal Ascot to Cheltenham, back to Wimbledon, Reading, Slough. It's been a wonderful, wonderful hour. I can't believe it. I could talk to you all day and all night about it. I'd just like to say thank you. It's been great, and I dare say there'll be plenty of people who will enjoy this. And keep up the good work, and hopefully that Derby winner will come in the very near future.
Yeah, you never know. You need a bit of luck as well as patience.
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, that has been Terry Dartnall here on Matchbook.
Thank you.
Join us next time. I don't know if we'll ever get a guest as colourful, but I can promise you one thing. I'll enjoy looking back at this one again in the future. Again, Terry, thanks so much.
Thanks very much. Thank you.